Thank you everyone for joining today. Today's Twitter Space, or tonight's Twitter Space, depending on where you're at. My name is Hunter. I'm the community manager over here at Off-Chain Labs, building Arbitrum. I'm joined today actually as well, co-host Peter, who also does business development over here at Off-Chain Labs as well. And we are actually interviewing the co-founder of ZRX, Will. Will, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Hunter. Hey, Peter. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to the conversation.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's going to be a very, very interesting one. Funny enough, I think you know, obviously in crypto there are many different types of audiences, but I think for this conversation specifically, we're going to hit like the technical stuff, the more user-facing stuff, and everything in between. So I think that it's going to be a very interesting one for everyone. I think.
Excellent. Well, yeah, I'm happy to dig into uh, any layer of the stack. But yeah, one thing should definitely mention, maybe before we even get too deep into it, is just how excited we are to launch support for Arbitrum within ZRX API and within Matcha. So providing DEX aggregation, making it extremely easy for developers to add swapping functionality into their products. So now it's even easier for folks to get to complete swaps at the best prices on Arbitrum, and we're really excited to be a part of the ecosystem.
Thank you, Will, on that. I've been following ZRX actually for a really long time, and Matcha is actually my one of my favorite DEX aggregators that I actually use on a regular basis. So really excited to see you guys come on board with Arbitrum support and dig more into the questions.
Awesome. Well, yeah, appreciate the support.
In that case, let's dive into it. So for those, maybe I think a great way to kind of give a little outline. For those who don't know, what is ZRX?
So ZRX is a protocol for exchanging Ethereum tokens or ERC20 tokens in a peer-to-peer manner. That was how the vision for ZRX kind of originally started. Back in 2016, my co-founder and I were working on a different project built on top of Ethereum. It was actually a standard for options tokens, and the thinking was that crypto is way too volatile for most use cases, and so if there was a way to kind of hedge against that volatility, it might open up kind of more use cases for crypto and kind of everyday usage. And what we found is that we kind of built out this token standard. It made it really easy to create options tokens. But what we found out is that these tokens weren't very useful without somewhere to exchange them. And at the time, the only real exchanges that existed were centralized. There weren't any decentralized exchanges on Ethereum. And so it became clear to us that like if no one else was going to build it, that's what we would do. And so we started developing a really efficient way to exchange tokens peer to peer. And over time, as we met more and more teams that were building on top of Ethereum, so projects that were in the kind of San Francisco Ethereum developer community, like MakerDAO and Augur and Gnosis and many others, they all kind of ran into the exact same issue where they needed exchange functionality in order to kind of unlock their use case, but exchange wasn't the core kind of functionality that they were trying to tackle. It was just a necessary building block. And so it kind of over time it kind of became clear that this kind of really kind of gas efficient approach to decentralized exchange that Amir and I had been developing would be way more useful if it is basically a developer platform that anyone could build marketplaces or exchanges on top of. And so that was when we it became clear that like we wanted to build ZRX protocol, a way for anyone to kind of swap these tokens in a peer-to-peer manner. And we released the white paper in early 2017. And that's kind of how that's kind of like the kind of how ZRX happened in the early days.
No, I think that's great, and I actually remember following you guys way back then. When you guys were getting started, and I think Zero X has definitely kind of evolved over time from that initial model from where you guys initially started from where you're at today with Zero X API and Matcha, and so yeah, it'd be great to hear a little bit more on how things changed from 2017. I remember like when I think you guys had a talk where you were talking about NFTs and having all these other use cases that people could exchange, and it would be great to hear from your perspective. Like, did that actually materialize, and is that what you guys are seeing today?
Yeah, thank Peter. It's awesome. Yeah, I feel like we've like been kind of aware of each other in the space for many years, but it's the first time we've gotten a chance to really catch up and chat. But yeah, so it, in the beginning, kind of like our core thesis was that in starting, Zero X, our core thesis was that all forms of value would end up tokenized, and so it doesn't matter if it's like a traditional asset like a stock, bond, fiat currency, startup equity, or if like it was like a more abstract kind of asset, and it could be like a profile picture or a video game item or a skin, or airline miles. Basically, once you establish a globally accessible platform for open financial transactions, uh, you know, all forms of value are going to converge on that platform. Or in where I think we're heading is a network of networks, and it'll be fun to talk about Arbitrum and its role within kind of this multi-chain future. Um, and so that was really the key kind of hypothesis that Amir and I had, and why we were so focused on building kind of exchange, open source exchange infrastructure that's publicly accessible. Yeah, I mean, frankly, it's pretty insane where the space is today. There are multi-billion-dollar stable coins, like dollar-backed stable coins that are being used for all sorts of kind of speculative purposes, but also being used in like really kind of legitimate financial transactions that are beneficial and creating for the folks that are and we're seeing kind of like token is taking root there in like um, I think pretty soon you're going to start seeing organized that's pretty challenging to even imagine. Back a few years ago. One project that actually I've been following for a really long time, and is built on Arbitrum and is really exciting, is the community point system within Reddit. So allowing each subreddit to have tokens that are kind of given out to encourage good behavior and or things that are kind of aligned with the subreddit's purpose. And these kind of community points can be used for reputation or for like getting access to special emojis and or like the banner image above the subreddit. These are like just really interesting concepts where I think we're in the early days of seeing how they play out. But with much more scalable networks, community points running on Arbitrum, it's I think we're going to see a lot of these types of experiments start to accelerate.
Yeah, and really appreciate the shout out there with Reddit and the community points. That was a lot of hard work over time, from the team and getting that going on Arbitrum Nova. But definitely agree with you on the use cases kind of exploding, and I just think it's kind of funny how you were pointing this out like years ago, and now it's just becoming a reality. So it's great to see.
It's definitely exciting times. Yes.
I think it'd be really cool to maybe dive into maybe more of like a user-facing product that people maybe a little more familiar with in Zero X. And in this case, that'd be Matcha. Maybe can you go into a little bit about what Matcha is and how it differs from like I guess Zero X itself and maybe any of the other kind of competitors it has in that field?
Yeah, absolutely. So Matcha was kind of spawned out of this vision for this world where there are billions of different tokenized assets. Uh, how are people going to really quickly find what they're looking for and make sure they're getting the best price? And it just so happens that we'd spent the past 4 years or more just 100% focused on answering that question from an infrastructure standpoint. Aggregating all of these different sources of liquidity and performing kind of complex routing to achieve the best average price for the end user. That was like what that's what we you know that's what we do. And so kind of combining that with this future where there are billions and billions of tokenized assets, how can that be kind of surfaced to end users in a way that's accessible and you know optimized for reducing friction for user kind of experience, trust, and make it something that can scale to billions of tokens in the future. And so Matcha, it's at matcha.xyz. It's our DEX aggregation user interface. But I think if you go to the website, what you'll really notice is that it feels like a search engine. So you go to the front page, there's a search bar, and you can look for pretty much any token across 8 different networks and Arbitrum included, absolutely. And it will, sample all of the prices from all the different Arbitrum decentralized exchanges, and it will figure out how to kind of make sure you get the very best price every single time, while making the entire experience fun, trustworthy, and hopefully meeting kind of the standard that you would expect from like a world class Web 2 application. So yeah, that's kind of the thought process behind Matcha is how do we take this really sophisticated technology and surface it in a way where anyone can kind of figure out how to complete a decentralized exchange swap, and take advantage of all this technology that's powering it under the surface.
I think one question I have in terms of like, the like how Matcha works is really around like how are you guys able to choose which dexes? I guess we can use Arbitrum, of course, in this example. Like which dexes on Arbitrum to aggregate from? Like are all dexes in this case created equal, or you can just kind of plug and play almost all of them, and it aggregates seamlessly, or is it kind of more of a lift for certain dexes versus other ones?
So the so usually it's pretty straightforward where like you know most trading activity is perhaps consolidated around 4 or 5 different protocols, but for like longer tail assets or certain types of markets that maybe aren't just kind of like the top you know top 10 top 20 trading pairs, those will also sometimes be on other liquidity sources. So our approach to like integrating new sources of liquidity is very much data driven and also determined through testing. So we'll look at all of the different protocols that are out there. We'll kind of evaluate the usage and the amount of liquidity that is perhaps available. Then we'll actually do integration testing, and so we'll compare our outcomes for trades with or without a particular liquidity source added. And what we look to see every single time we add a new liquidity source is that we're able to provide a price improvement to the end user. And so it's a really rigorous process. I would say that, it isn't something that has to be figured out from scratch every time, because, what we found is that uh, there are a lot of kind of Uniswap v2 forks. There are all sorts of mechanisms that share similar interfaces to those smart contracts, and it generally isn't like the biggest lift to add a source of liquidity. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Oh, totally. It's just funny because I feel like, I mean, usually regular users probably aren't really thinking about like like all these kind of in detail questions, but like this is the kind of stuff where it's like, oh, like the UI, for example, on Matcha, like and the way it actually feels when you're actually executing a transaction, like it truly feels like magic in that it just works. So it's like I'm always just interested in like, okay, like how does this actually work? Because there's, there's no way it's as simple as them just opening a front end and that's it, obviously. So it's just really interesting hearing about like y'all's approach, I guess, to aggregation in this case.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a tough one because there's a lot of kind of basic theory stuff that goes into routing, pathfinding, but there's also kind of like you know uh, yeah, like kind of a lot of things that don't necessarily show up on the surface when you're thinking about adding a liquidity source. Will it actually improve price for or not? And like ultimately, that's our objective, is like to optimize where these are out. Uh, we do a ton of like transaction analysis on past transactions, and better understand how to kind of route user trades in a way that will achieve the best outcome. And so, yeah, there's definitely a lot of different pieces that go into it, and it's a really fascinating topic.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've also seen this firsthand, just using it and seeing the different paths, like when you adjust the quantity when you're trying to make a trade, how Matcha will choose different options for people. But like one thing I noticed with Zero X2 was that originally, you guys started by focusing on Ethereum, rightfully so, because that's where Zero X began. But then more recently, you guys have taken this, multi-chain approach, integrating with Arbitrum. And so I was kind of curious, like, what do you guys think about, layer twos and how they're helping to scale Ethereum?
Yeah. So I think that there are kind of two questions here. First is how, is a multi-chain world a good thing uh, and needed right now? And I think the answer to that is yes. Like, if we want to onboard billions of people to, globally accessible rails, uh, then we're going to need, many, many different teams that are working on innovating on kind of underlying blockchain technology. Some of those advances will be like kind of fundamental improvements to network kind of scaling, but a lot of them will also just, a lot of these projects that are going to play a really important role in onboarding users are going to have, perhaps even their own consensus mechanisms. Uh, eh, so I think the second question is, you know, what's the world look like in the future in this multi-chain world? Is it a bunch of layer twos that are anchored into Ethereum, or are there kind of many different kind of clusters of networks that are interoperating but not necessarily under shared security? And yeah, I'm happy to like dig into either one of those two areas. Kind of the adoption question or like the network security kind of decentralization question?
Yeah, actually, maybe on the latter part, because I'm just curious, how do you think about that? Because I know, or at least from what I heard, you guys are also looking at Solana as another option as well. So yeah, would just love to hear more from your perspective there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the best summary of this topic that I've read so far is Vitalik's blog post. I forget the name. Like, the future will be multi-chain, not cross-chain, or something. So
Yep.
yeah, so Vitalik argues that basically if we have a bunch of different kind of layer two networks or shards, whatever, and it's all kind of anchored into the same shared security model, there won't be as much reliance on, I guess, layer one to layer one bridges. And the challenge with bridges is that they are much more challenging, much kind of less battle tested and resilient than the kind of layer two model where you can deposit to a layer two and withdraw, with pretty, with a good level of security, underneath it. And I think Vitalik basically argues that bridges are too risky. There's going to just be too many, hacks, too many issues that result in, people losing money or even contagion within different kind of DeFi ecosystems. And that, it just isn't the right approach. And ultimately, Ethereum, I think like probably what Ethereum or what Vitalik is implying is like, Ethereum should be kind of like the shared security layer, and everyone should build L2s on top of Ethereum. That's my interpretation, but maybe it isn't right. But yeah, curious. Before I continue, I'm curious if that is kind of your understanding of Vitalik's position.
No, that's exactly that. And I was actually looking at that post earlier today. It's funny that you brought it up, and so I'm actually kind of fully on board with that approach as well. And it was funny that and timely that he put that out there. And then we had a lot of those bridge hacks that happened over time, and it seems like the approach that you guys have taken is more so that the DEX aggregator will be kind of deployed on various chains, and so you guys aren't doing like cross chain swaps or anything like that, but you're just doing them on the native chain themselves. And so it seems like you guys are also taking a security forward point of view.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I think so. I think that, yeah, if you look at what has played out in the period of time since Vitalik put out that blog post, there have been, yeah, multiple significant hacks of bridges, big ones, big hacks. And like, yeah, I mean, it definitely, I think Vitalik's point is it's a very logical point. Uh, I I'm not sure though if it's the only position that is tenable to take today, uh, because I think that there are like if you want to talk about Solana, like Solana has its own consensus. It's not a layer two in any way at all. It's highly, it supports a large number of transactions per second, and um, you know, yeah, it is Solana. Should we kind of judge Solana in whether it's viable to not be an Ethereum layer two based on you know kind of the solutions, the evidence that we have today of where the space is heading, bridge hacks, etc. Or I don't know if we should like necessarily form a concrete opinion today that can't change, because I think pretty much every blockchain is going to have to adapt and change and evolve over time. And what a particular network might look like 3 to 5 years from now could be completely different from what a network looks like today. And so I do think it's dangerous to look at it. It's very tempting, but it's also, and it is worth comparing things. It is worth having these conversations around technical trade-offs. But I think, it's hard to, yeah, come to like a strong opinion that will not change in the future about, you know, should everything be a layer two, or is, building a solution and focusing on onboarding millions of people with a solution that's, maybe more centralized and not necessarily kind of optimizing for some of the ideals a lot of crypto people have, but is actually bringing people onto self-custody wallets and so forth. Like that might actually be like a really valuable uh, contribution to the space too. Is just, even though maybe the network consensus doesn't have the trade-offs that we like, it's still introducing, you know people to blockchain technology. And ultimately these are folks that, you know will be able to make more informed decisions about which networks they use as they become more kind of educated. That's my kind of take, is that everything being a layer 2 is really convenient and it would be clean. But I also think that, yeah, like bridge technology can improve. Bringing more people onto blockchains is also like an important aspiration or important thing to focus on. So yeah, I don't know.
No, 100%. I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, I kind of started my career at Tendermint and Parity, and so I agree with you that that we'll see more improvement there too. But yeah, Hunter, if you want to continue.
No, yeah, no, totally. I think that's why. I truly think that's why, like one thing we truly believe, like, at least like here at Offchain Labs, is that, you know one size does not fit all. Like, there's a reason why, for example, we have Arbitrum One and Arbitrum Nova, because we know that certain applications just like work more efficiently on different types of chains with different types of security assumptions. And I don't know. I think that's our approach generally. And like I think having Ethereum as like the source of truth, um, you know, is tends to be, I think, like the safest bet, especially when you are securing large amounts of, of wealth or even NFTs. But that being said, curious in your thoughts on, like, you know what do you think, like, layer twos similar to Arbitrum One can improve on, versus, like, like Ethereum as like a base layer. And I guess we can get into, like, account abstraction, or like how kind of ERC20s work in terms of permit versus allowances and stuff like that. But, like, very interested to hear your thoughts on how like layer twos can, like, I don't know, I guess evolve versus Ethereum maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think, not repeating some of the mistakes, or maybe they're not mistakes, maybe they're just things that became clear with hindsight. But yeah, like some of the things that are currently baked into Ethereum at the layer one, that aren't that great for users or for like user experience. I do think there's an opportunity here to like encourage community members that are launching different types of tokens. It could be industry or enterprise partners, like the circles of the world. Get them to move away from the kind of allowance, the kind of allowance user flow that is required to interact with different decentralized applications. So, with ERC20 tokens, in order for a smart contract to access your tokens and kind of pull them out of your account, you have to provide it with an allowance. And, you know, first of all, like, it's just kind of annoying. Like when you're going and you're trying to use a DApp, and it asks you to like, set your allowance for that app. It's like not the greatest experience, but what's actually dangerous about it is that users, instead of having users kind of set an allowance for every individual transaction, it just makes way more sense if they're going to be using, say, like ZRX API. If you're using Matcha many times, and it makes sense to just like set your allowance to infinity and like, okay, if I initiate a trade and cryptographically sign it, like this app in particular can access my tokens until the end of time, and I trust that this smart contract system can only do it when I graphically sign, you know, a transaction that will make it so. Like that's just not a very great, not like a very good pattern. And so, allowing users to use basically gasless permits is like one of the things that you could encourage at an ecosystem level within the Arbitrum community. And it would allow, apps that are built on Arbitrum to, have a smoother user experience. There's kind of less of this kind of the rough blockchain edges that, users have to encounter. And, similarly with account abstraction, like with Ethereum, basically if you are a user and you don't use a smart contract wallet, then you have to have kind of the native currency in your account. And you can't, that gas has to be in your account. It can't be sitting in some other smart contract that you own. And it really kind of limits the ability of users to seamlessly move between networks, and just generally it adds more friction to the transaction signing process, transaction process. And so I think these are areas where, layer twos can learn from the kind of pain points that exist on Ethereum and encourage, healthier, better token standards, focus on things that are maybe a little higher risk, like account abstraction, and, ultimately like help the entire space move forward. I do think that Arbitrum is definitely in a position to kind of like lead the space, in given its presence and kind of the ecosystem around it.
Yeah, one thing that you mentioned there, with account abstraction is something that I think our team's definitely aware of. And one of the announcements that we put out recently was that we acquired Prismatic Labs, which is building Prism, which is it's not the ETH2 client, but the ETH proof of stake client.
Killer team.
Yeah, exactly. And really excited to be working with the rest of them going forward. And so I think a lot of these things like account abstraction, there's others that's on our list as well as are ones that we're going to be prioritizing and making sure that we can provide a great experience for users. And I mean, you mentioned the the unlimited permissions and stuff like that. And I've also been in touch with like the Blowfish team that's I think came from ZeroX too, and is trying to provide solutions to solve some of that as well. So yeah, definitely a lot of improvements down the line, but we're building out our team and going to be working on that. One other question that I think we have for you, Will, and I'd say that you are definitely more of the expert on this, is like how is ZeroX approaching MEV and making sure that this translates into a great experience for users who use the product on Matcha.
Yeah, definitely happy to talk about it. It's something that we've been thinking about for years, and it's been really interesting kind of seeing MEV become a real problem for people that are using decentralized exchanges, as well as other apps. But I would say MEV is like most directly and predominantly a decentralized exchange challenge. So yeah, I'm not really sure the level of familiarity within the call, but I feel like it's always good to just start from first principles and just kind of explain what is MEV and how does it occur. So yeah, MEV is kind of maximum extractable value or minor extractable value, and it basically just the miner or the block builder, the validator, they get to choose which transactions go into a block, as well as the sequence in which those transactions are processed. So they are processed in sequence unless there is, support for some sort of parallel processing, which is, something that a lot of projects have talked about, but is not something that I'm aware of being in production today. So MEV, basically, since this validator or miner has like this privileged position, they can see which transactions are going to go in the block. They can see, they can control which order they go in. It creates this opportunity for them to basically, put their own transactions into the block and to extract value from certain transactions that are vulnerable. And oftentimes they're like decentralized exchange or AMM swaps that are vulnerable. And so, MEV is a real problem. In 2021, hundreds of millions of dollars of MEV was extracted from AMM trades. It's a lot, and it's actually impacting DEX traders pretty significantly. And so the challenge is that MEV isn't necessarily obvious to you when your trade, say you go to your favorite AMM, when you complete your trade, you saw the price that was shown to you in the user interface, looks good. You click OK. You wait for your transaction to be mined into a block, and then you either see success or failure. There was an error, and that's kind of the end of it. But what users often don't aren't communicated is like, okay, your trade was completed successfully, but you're actually receiving like 1% or like 3%, even in some extreme cases, less than we showed you in the initial kind of trade screen. And so users aren't even aware that they might have lost like a really big chunk of their trade just to some malicious bot that was trying to figure out how to kind of take advantage of that AMM trade. And so it's something that like there's a lot of folks that talk about MEV. There's lots of discussion on it recently, but I think like the users really don't understand necessarily when they are impacted by it, and it's frequent. So this is a MEV just generally is something that our team has been just really fascinated with for a long time. Not only even before MEV was really a problem, like, if you look at like 2017, 2018, and a lot of times there would just be like opportunities to, make, to extract a lot of value from transactions, and no one would even do it because no one was even paying attention. But nowadays, it's super competitive. If there is a way to extract value from a transaction, someone's going to figure out how to do it, and they're going to compete to do it. So, one of the things that are a couple of the things that we've built that are really powerful ways to, reduce the impact of MEV on users are two things. So first, our team has been developing request for quote systems for a long time now. At this point, we've been working for years. I think we're about 3 generations in at this point. And a request for quote system is a different type of decentralized exchange. It's not like an AMM where a smart contract is and it's actually a maker who is pinged right at the moment you're considering and this and, and,
You're breaking up a little bit, Will. Sorry, say again?
A little off.
Okay. It looks like it might be a little bit better now. I'll jump in, but let me know if if it's breaking up. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So RFQ, request for quote systems, they are a way for trade with a professional market maker directly in a peer-to-peer manner at a price that is locked in. So you know exactly the price you're agreeing to, and you know that if the trade is successful, that's the price you get. So these RFQ systems are great. They're not like a new idea. They've existed for many years, even decades. And we're just architecting the technology to work really well for tokens, blockchains. That one of the ways you see MPV on traders is a new algorithm that is unique to ZRX API. So, ZRX API is our developer API that does all of the smart order routing and kind of puts out a payload that will tell you how to achieve the best price. So ZRX API behind the scenes, its smart order routing algorithm is able to look at historical slippage rates from past trades, and it can figure out, exactly how much a trade that you are to put in, that you're planning to submit. It can figure out exactly how much slippage you can expect from that trade. And it uses that information to not only kind of achieve the best price, but also minimize slippage at the same time by routing to different sources of liquidity that may be less impacted by slippage or MEV, or splitting it across a trade across multiple sources that are on net going to reduce slippage, kind of split it, split the trade in half. The benefit will be outsized. And so, frankly, I'm really proud of our kind of how far ahead our team is when it comes to like MEV and smart order routing. And I do think, we're pretty far ahead of the curve. But yeah, we're getting better about talking about it.
I'd love to maybe like hear a little bit more about that RFQ system in terms of like are there any like trade-offs that come with that? I mean, and is that, would you say it's like as easy as someone just logging into the MetaMask and just initiating a swap, or is there kind of another extra step in that process that needs to be taken?
Yeah, so there is a downside, and that downside is that since it's a professional market maker that is responding with a quote in real time, there needs to be someone that is able to kind of ping the market maker and kind of facilitate that kind of real time communication back and forth, and that is a point of centralization. So you're able to avoid kind of the kind of downsides of decentralization, then the MEV and kind of transaction ordering, you can avoid the downsides of that, but you are doing so by introducing elements of centralization into the system. And what we've found is that by combining both options together, you're able to just provide a a better outcome for users a much higher percent of the time by just comparing all of the different potential sources of liquidity and just optimizing for the user outcome. So it's a trade-off that I think is a reasonable one to make. Yeah.
And I truly think that's why, again, the space is just so interesting and fascinating to work in, because I mean, it's like you said earlier, there are so many different kind of approaches that you can take to, like, like making one's product, or like, innovating in the space. And like I think it's important to have, like, many different types of these innovations, including, in this case, RFQ, like, on chain, just because it just, I don't know. I think the more options, the better. And frankly, the market tends to, end up picking whatever is the most efficient. Uh, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think something else that I'd love to hear more about too, is, really just about, like, your thoughts on, NFTs. And this is kind of off the backs of, like other dexes, for example, like Uniswap starting to get into the NFT space with their, I think they're acquiring of Genie, OpenSea announcing support for Arbitrum. Like, what are your thoughts on NFTs? And, is ZeroX planning on being like a big player in that space?
Oh yeah. Oh man, NFTs are amazing, and I'm super excited about them, and I'm super bummed out that we haven't been able to do more uh, recently, but that is going to change. So I'm extremely excited and optimistic about NFTs. I'm yeah, you know, I've played video games since I was a kid, at varying degrees, and like the idea of owning kind of digital digital goods that can impact gameplay, or that can convey some sort of value in kind of like a digital space, like that feels very natural to me, and like kind of an obvious. People are spending more and more times in virtual worlds and on their computers, and things like profile pictures, it very clearly seems to me that that humans just seek ways to kind of express themselves through things like that are going to be digital goods, that are going to be NFTs. And so in my mind, it's like a no-brainer. The only question in my end is like, yeah, like what are the completely out there use cases that no one has even thought about yet, but will end up kind of taking the world by storm? We'll see what kind of the limits of NFTs as kind of a primitive look like in the future. If, for us, I would say that like ZeroX Labs, our team, uh, really believe in NFTs and have since I think pretty early on. But our timing in terms of when we were focusing our attention on supporting the NFT ecosystem, yeah, like I think our timing on that piece was just we were way too early, and not in like a cool hipster way, but in a sad, like, wow, we spent so much time investing in building this stuff, and like no one was like really using it to the scale of the most recent NFT wave. And it would have been really cool to have had those times line up a little bit better. But yeah, so our team has yeah, NFTs are not non-fungible tokens, digital goods. Like these have been a core part of our vision since the beginning. And when NFTs were just starting to like get some momentum, there's more experiments going on, like with CryptoPunks. CryptoPunks didn't even kind of follow the ERC 721 token standard because it hadn't been developed yet. Around that time, there was a lot of chatter about establishing a token standard for NFTs on top of Ethereum at the time, and it was really hard to kind of get consensus and just finalize it in GitHub, and so actually we set up like a working group at ETH Denver. I think it was in 2018, ETH Denver, with like the OpenSea guys and a bunch of other folks that were excited about NFTs, and we kind of like like fleshed out hashed out kind of the final like areas where there was disagreement on the ERC 721 standard. And I think ultimately it was like that East Denver working group that really kind of finalized, the NFT token standard. And so, the reason why we were even involved at all is because we were like, oh, we need to add support for NFT swaps to ZRX protocol. We just need to define what an NFT is first. And so, that was something that we were super excited about. And we built a lot of pretty neat products that would allow, folks to take advantage of NFTs and to, build up their own kind of self-serve NFT marketplaces and, all sorts of tooling for kind of complex things like collection orders. Those were, things that we supported in ZRX back in like V2 in 2018. But just, I was too early. No, there were a few teams that were using it. Token Trove was one, and Gods Unchained was like the biggest FT game. Really exciting getting to work with them. They're, the immutable team now. And yeah, we were super stoked about it. We were even having like Gods Unchained, kind of tournaments, like staying in the office together. But yeah, we just really didn't see the NFT space get legs, and we shifted a lot of our focus towards, our kind of fungible token aggregation. And that's why we have some of I'm biased, but I think that we have the very best pricing and order routing in the entire industry, and partially because we had to make tough choices like focus in on that versus NFTs. But yeah, we currently support NFT swaps in 0xv4. That's live on Arbitrum today. And Coinbase NFT marketplace is using the latest version of 0x protocol for NFT swaps, and a bunch of other teams are also exploring building their own vertical marketplaces on top of 0x protocol as well. But yeah, we're our team hasn't been investing our own time and attention into building a consumer product for NFTs. But when a team like Uniswap purchases Genie, that's a really strong signal, that NFTs are a great way of bringing in users that might be from completely different user segments than kind of the speculative crypto folks that are kind of buying long tail tokens. Like the NFT crowd is different, and if you're optimizing for user adoption and growth and distribution, then you gotta you probably have to make a play there. And I think that's what the Uniswap team is doing, even though like it hasn't really been their focus historically. It's just like a really important way to get more users to their website.
Yeah, I do recall back then when you guys were working on some of the a lot of the NFT tooling and work like that back then, but I didn't have all that context, so that was really helpful and great to hear. And it and I think that you guys are positioned really well to adopt to that, especially with like we have a focus on Arbitrum Nova, which is a chain that's going to be more focused on gaming and social. And so as we push towards gaming and there's other teams that are pushing hard towards gaming, I think the use cases for NFTs is just going to continue to, go up and up in the future. And so I think you guys will be prepared for that. But I think Hunter and I are also kind of curious about like, what are some upcoming products or other things that you guys are working on, maybe aside from the MEV work or on the NFT side?
Yeah, so a lot of exciting stuff been going on. A lot of it has been kind of top secret behind the scenes, but I'm excited to share that. Yeah, we have indeed been working on matcha for uh, you know the last year and really heads down, kind of building the next version of it, and heavily focusing on performance and scalability, and as well as just refining the entire look and feel such that you know yeah we want to create the most frictionless experience possible. And so, really focusing in on that piece has been something we've been doing kind of behind the scenes for a while. And I can't say what we're releasing and when, but there's going to be a really exciting and significant matcha update coming in the next months. Um, and so that'll be exciting. And another really exciting development, and another kind of indication that you know this space is not going anywhere, and it's only growing. Robinhood recently announced the closed beta for their crypto wallet. Um, they're focused on uh, you know a limited set of network functionality right now, um, but there's a million people on their wait list, and their crypto wallet is powered by uh, gasless swaps, which we've been also working on kind of behind the scenes for many months. And so, yeah, it's going to be one of the first user experiences that is like gas free. You don't have to have gas. It should feel very smooth and, kind of uh, satisfy like the really high bar that the Robinhood team places on user experience. And so that's going to be rolling out in not so distant future, and we're really excited to be working with them, onboarding more people to the space. And I think it's in this kind of multi-chain future that we're working towards. I think there's no question that every crypto wallet will is going to be supporting the Arbitrum ecosystem, and it's just a question of time. And so hopefully we'll be able to kind of support those Arbitrum swaps within the Robinhood wallet and in the not so distant future as well, but we'll see.
Yeah,
I was just going to say that we'll hold you to it. Thank you. Go ahead, Peter.
Oh yeah. No, I just want to say congrats on Robinhood, and we've been having positive conversations with them too. So.
Awesome.
No, and honestly, that's a really exciting feature. I think, especially for a wallet that's more than likely going to be majority, like kind of non crypto native people. People who have Robinhood, probably are very familiar with the whole like AMC stuff that happened like last year. That whole fun scenario. So like maybe like they have the degens and like the stock traders, I guess. But I'm truly interested in seeing like how that resonates with that crowd of people, like, and truly onboarding them into crypto, and allowing them to kind of just, yeah, like onboard themselves to like to even more degen lifestyle than Robinhood is, for better or worse.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it's going to be very successful. I think that, at least I hope that like, the crazy speculators that are on like Wall Street Bets or whatever on Reddit I'm hoping it's just like a small and vocal contingent, and that, we can onboard like a million, future crypto believers, and, yeah, but yeah, I think it's going to be a huge deal. You know, these companies that are starting to enter the space are, magnitudes larger than any of the kind of crypto apps that exist today. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting next, I think, 12 to 24 months.
Very excited to see, and no worries about not releasing any alpha. I totally get it. Sometimes I pressure some of our guests to do it, but it's okay. It's late. um, just because we're actually coming up on time here, I want to be cognizant. If anyone has a question or two from the community, feel free to raise your hand, and maybe we can knock one or two out. How does that sound, Will?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Let me see here. I think we have an Andrew Parkerson.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Hey.
Cool. One of the things I'm excited about these layer 2 solutions is the fact that they get better the more people use them. So have you thought about maybe increasing the incentives to drive adoption, given long term you could come out as the dominant L2 and really kill the competition by increasing incentives to get more users?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that I think we pride ourselves on as a chain today is that Arbitrum is actually the largest layer 2 on Ethereum. If you look at, metrics like TVL or like number of live dApps that's on Arbitrum today, I think we have somewhere between like 400 to 500 that are on. And so I think we're definitely, keenly aware of what other teams are doing. And I'm sure kind of similar to Will, we'll have more to share in the future. But yeah, I think I'm just really proud of all the organic adoption that we've seen on Arbitrum today. It has been pretty amazing, and I think we'll definitely be competitive in the future.
Awesome. Thank you for taking my question.
Yeah, no problem. All right.
I think we have one person over here as well, Crypto Jack. Preferably a question for ZRX, by the way, if possible. I already let them up, so let's see. Fingers crossed. What do you got for us, Crypto Jack?
Can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
First, I want to mention that Andrew Saunders is a big tease, and he's a great marketing guy, though. And quick question for Matcha: how's the liquidity on Arbitrum? I love using you guys on Matic Network, but on Cello wasn't that great.
Hey, thank you for the question. Yeah, on Cello, there were some differences in how the kind of Cello node works, and it prevented us from tapping into, I think, like kind of the clone of Uniswap there. That being said, we do not have that issue on Arbitrum, and we just shipped all of the top liquidity sources, and I think you're going to find really good pricing on Matcha. It's I think you're never going to do better going to an individual DEX versus an aggregator that is pretty much focused on kind of absorbing all of them and making sure you're getting the best price.
Awesome. I'll have to try it out because like I said, on the Matic Network, that's all I use is Matcha.
Oh, thank you. And
now I'm
that
on
means
Arbitrum.
Well, yeah, it's super important to us that Matcha is like the very best experience for swapping on Arbitrum, and if we would love any feedback that anyone is willing to share or provide, because we definitely want to support the Arbitrum community and ecosystem.
The only glitch that sometimes happens on the Matic Network is if it doesn't connect for some reason sometimes right away. So you have to kind of like Control R or disconnect your wallet and then reconnect it. I don't know if that's because I'm switching between networks too fast. That might be it. But that's about it. Everything else is great.
Oh, amazing. Well, yeah, super glad to hear it. And yeah, I hope you give it a shot on Arbitrum. And yeah, I anticipate that it'll everything will be flawless and work smoothly. But yeah, we definitely want to make sure it's as good as it could possibly be for the Arbitrum users.
Tomorrow morning is every morning that's when the cheapest rates on Arbitrum is, so I'll definitely use it tomorrow. Thanks.
Nice.
Thanks for the alpha. I had no idea.
Me neither.
That's great. I think in anticipation of any potential trolls and when questions, I think we can probably cut it here, especially because again we are over time. Will, just to kind of end things off smoothly, if there's anyone in the crowd who wants to kind of join the ZeroX kind of community or even contribute to it, what would you say is the best way for them to do that?
So definitely follow the ZeroX and Matcha Twitter accounts. If you enjoy using Matcha, definitely give it a follow. There's going to be some exciting announcements coming out in the not so distant future. So yeah, definitely give it a follow. Also, we do have a Discord, and we are definitely actively hiring. We have a number of roles open, around 20 roles open. So if you're also thinking about making the leap into the crypto space, ZeroX Labs could be a great place to land. Our team's really top notch. We've been around for 6-7 years, and we have some of the most kind of experienced folks in a number of areas, and helping kind of train up and bring the next generation of builders on. So feel free to check out our jobs at zerox.org/jobs. And yeah, appreciate y'all taking the time to tune in.
Thank you for coming on, Will. It was a very, very intriguing conversation, covering all topics.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, Will.
All right, Peter. All right, Hunter. Thank you.
Peace out, y'all.
Have a good one, guys. Bye.